that is, 2024 will be even hotter. So not good news, and that is also why when we opened this Singapore Sustainability Academy, we called it SSA in short. Since 2017 World Environment Day until today, we are actually looking at, this space as really a space to bring people together. It is not just a net zero building, and also the green building platinum level, and on top is actually covered with solar panels that power the whole running of these operations. And behind this black curtain is actually our NGO partner, Sustainable Energy Association Singapore, SEAS. So here is a space that you promote climate action, green building, sustainable energy, and we actually bring a lot of people together here. Since we opened, we have 30,000 people walk in here to take part in events like this, and also training courses. And even during lockdown, we have a few thousand people actually log on to our virtual SSA events. And you see the partner organization that really we are very proud of. We have 6 government agencies and many private sector organizations, bringing public, private, and people sector together. So, and when we opened that time, we did not know that, this space can become such a big hub to bring people together. Even European, organization also came here for events and all that, So last year, we decided to build an annex, which you can see here. Actually, we are very lucky. Only a week ago that the hoardings was still up, and then we removed it, and we are all set to open in a month's time. And UN Global Compact Network Singapore will be here. The new office will be operating here. They're moving from SBF to here because they need 20 over workstations, which we are building for them, and we are finishing it now. And they are going to bring a lot of business sectors here as well. Then our whole, hub here on the roof garden of City Square Mall is going to be a real hub for networking, for capacity building, to bring people together, because we are all very busy in the day-to-day work and all. So we need the conversation to stay alive. Otherwise, people will say that, they just read the news today that, the climate is getting, hotter and hotter. Then the next thing is like, where do we have dinner, So things will get forgotten or overlooked. But issue like climate change, even you don't pay attention to it, things are happening. So we need to continue the conversation and get it going. And this is the artist impression. And in fact, you are seeing it, the last stage already, those are all in black containers, are going to be covered with greenery. So it is actually, the wood are all from the very sustainable forest source, endorsed by Nature Barcode. So the rooftop is also covered with solar panels, and it will be a zero energy building. So this is really a physical form of what sustainability can really minimize climate and carbon footprint. So we have the most exciting slide of today. This is where we bring all the partners together with this SSA, the annex, we call it SSAA, and even expanding more beyond, environmental, organization and all that. We still have our 6 government agencies together with us, and we are supporting Race to Zero and Singapore Green Plan, and also Women for Green, Youth for Climate, and Sustainable Development Goals. And hopefully you all know about these 17 goals, 169 targets. If you don't know, read about it, and then get a pin that you are part of our SDG gang already, okay? So below are our international partners, and it is still growing, including Jane Goodall Institute. We have the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and One Young World. EFAX is a very long name, which is a European Federation for Financial Analyst Societies. So they were here 2 weeks ago to launch the CESCA, which is a Certified ESG Analyst. In our life, we have a lot of acronym. And of course, we have GRI, and even the Financial Women Association, Jane Goodall Institute, NYC also, David is here, and People's Association, and we have the Wholesome Food, the founder is here. Talk to Aijen if you want to learn more about how to eat healthy. not just physically, but also mentally as well. So we have a lot of good partner joining this space, and look out for the opening. You will receive our invitation. So without further ado, I want to, pass this mic back pass the time back to our very exciting debate. And over to you, Karen.
Thank you, Esther. Instead of the usual panel discussion, we are adopting a very interesting format today that mimics the Singapore parliamentary debate. For background, the key characteristic of our parliamentary debate is structured with designated speaking times for each member of parliament involved in the discussion. The debate will be chaired by a presiding officer known as the Speaker. He oversees the debate and ensures that parliamentary rules and procedures are followed. The Speaker is responsible for maintaining order, managing speaking times, and also always enforcing parliamentary discipline. In today's session, our speaker will be Ruben Manukara, who is the Global Partnerships Assistant Director at the Prime Minister's Office. The debate will involve exchanges between two teams comprising representatives from the ministries and opposition. Each side will present their arguments and rebuttals on the topic. Ministry reps will defend their policies and actions, while the opposition will scrutinize, critique, and propose alternate views. Today, our ruling and opposition representatives include, representing Ministry of Manpower, Simarna Singh, Coco Veda's social entrepreneur. Representing Ministry of Education, Priscilla Tan, CDR Sustainability Manager. Representing Ministry of Social and Family Development, David Chua, National Youth Council CEO. And representing Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth, Kaamela Barvin, EB Impacts Manager. The opposition representatives will be Grace Chiang, Steward Redqueen's consultant, and Shu Qin, Our Singapore Reefs Co-Founder. For the debate, participants are expected to use formal and respectful language, adhering to parliamentary conventions and etiquette. Personal attacks, insults, or disrespectful behavior could be ruled off order by the speaker. The result of the debate will be determined by our audience through democratic voting via a QR code that will be shown at the end. Ladies and gentlemen, your vote matters. Without further ado, can I please invite our speaker, Ruben Manukara, to start the session, please.
On behalf of the Minister of Sustainability and the Environment, I beg to introduce the Women's Empowerment for Climate Solutions 2024 Bill. This bill aims to address a pressing issue that demands our urgent attention, namely the sufficient empowerment of women to drive climate solutions in Singapore. While our nation has made remarkable strides in both gender equality and environmental sustainability, it is evident that there remains a gap in addressing the potential of women as key stakeholders in addressing the climate change challenges. Women play a vital role in climate action, yet they are often marginalized and underrepresented in key decision-making processes and leadership roles, within the climate sector especially. Despite their invaluable knowledge, skills, and experiences, women continue to face barriers that hinder their full participation and contribution to climate solutions. And this is reflected in perceptions among women as well. In a survey conducted by Ipsos, more than half of Singaporean women said they were scared to speak up and advocate for the rights of women over fear of what might happen to them and how they might be perceived by others. In addition to creating a successful company and an innovative one, 16% think men are better, while only 8% think women can do the job better. We have a long way to go to make this better. As for the gender of the ideal boss, currently in Singapore, only 36% of Singaporeans said they prefer a man, while only 10% said they prefer a woman. This is less than 1/3 of the difference. This needs to change. As we confront the escalating impacts of climate change, it is imperative that we recognize and address the intersecting issues of gender equality and environmental degradation. As we embark to cope with the effects of climate change, our economy and our nation will have to transform. From a carbon transition, an economic transition, and an energy transition, this bill aims to address all issues. To this end, I propose on behalf of the Minister of Sustainability and Environment, this House is proposing the Women's Empowerment for Climate Solutions Bill, which seeks to address 4 key areas. First is on promoting women's leadership and participation. This bill will establish mechanisms to promote women's leadership and participation in climate-related decision-making processes at all levels, including in government agencies, non-government organizations, and community-based initiatives. We must create pathways for women to assume leadership roles in climate sectors and ensure that their voices are heard and valued in shaping climate policies and strategies. The second area is in enhancing access to education and training. This bill will prioritize investments in education and training programs to equip women with the knowledge, skills, and expertise needed to pursue their careers in climate-related fields such as renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, and environmental conservation. This aims to provide opportunities for all women to acquire specialized training and certification to enable them to contribute effectively to climate solutions. The third area is supporting women's entrepreneurship and innovation. This bill will support and give incentives for women entrepreneurs and innovators who are driving innovation and sustainability in climate sectors. This will be done through funding, mentorship, networking opportunities for women-led businesses and startups that are developing climate-resilient solutions as well as technologies. The last area is in ensuring gender-responsive policies and programs. This bill will mandate the integration of gender considerations into climate policies, programs, and initiatives across all government ministries and agencies. The agencies and ministries will conduct gender-sensitive impact assessments and ensure that climate interventions are designed to address the specific needs and priorities of women, particularly those in vulnerable and marginalized communities. In addition to this bill, the following amendments to existing bills with the respective ministries taking proactive steps will be proposed. Firstly, under the Manpower Act, amendments will be proposed to strengthen the provisions for gender equality and non-discrimination in the workplace, including measures to promote women's representation in climate-related industries and occupations. This includes enforcing equal pay for equal work and providing support for women's career progression in male-dominated fields such as engineering and technology. The second amendment will be to the Education Act, to introduce amendments that will integrate climate education and gender equality into the national curriculum and ensure that students are equipped with the knowledge, skills, and values needed to address climate change in a gender-inclusive manner. This includes promoting women's participation in STEM subjects and providing mentorship and support for female students. The third amendment is to the Women's Charter, to strengthen legal provisions for women's rights in the context of climate-related disasters and emergencies. This includes ensuring access to essential services such as healthcare, shelter, and social assistance for women affected by the impacts of climate change. As well as the amendments will address gender-based violence and discrimination in disaster response and recovery efforts, which may increase due to climate impacts. Lastly, there will be amendments to the Community, Culture and Youth Act to promote women's leadership and participation in community-based climate initiatives and grassroots organizations. This includes providing funding and capacity-building support for women-related projects that address climate resilience, environmental conservation, and sustainable development at the local level. This amendment will prioritize the inclusion of women's voices and perspectives in national dialogues and consultations, especially on those related to environmental as well as climate policies. Honorable members, empowering women to drive climate solutions is not only a matter of social justice and equality, but is also a strategic imperative for building a resilient and sustainable future for Singapore. By enacting this bill and implementing targeted amendments to other legislation, we can unlock the full potential of women as catalysts for positive change in our efforts to combat climate change. Thank you. With that, I invite the Honourable Leader of Opposition to take the floor.
Thank you. So we, as an opposition party, appreciate the opportunity to provide feedback on the proposed amendments to the Empowering Women for Climate Solutions Bill. So while we acknowledge the intent behind this amendment, we express our concerns and reservations regarding certain aspects that require careful considerations and further discussion. Regarding the proposed amendment to the Employment Act, focusing on gender equality and women representation in climate-related and male-dominated industries, we advocate for a more nuanced approach. We believe that while promoting women's representation is important, it should be accompanied by initiatives such as awareness building, skills development, mentorship, and workplace flexibility to ensure a comprehensive diversity and inclusion strategy. Effective legislative action should also go beyond surface level solutions and target deeper issues such as unconscious bias. So action by MOM should go beyond gender and recognize intersecting identities, avoiding preferential treatment based solely on gender, and ensuring equal opportunities based on merit and contribution. Similarly, with regards to the integration of climate education and gender equality into the national curriculum under MOE, we express reservation due to the glaring concerns over effectiveness and implementation. The efforts to promote girls' participation in STEM subjects may generate an initial curiosity, but they lack the sustained engagement and support necessary to guide them through the STEM careers. Additionally, providing mentorship and support for female students interested in pursuing careers in climate-related jobs should operate under the understanding that climate-related jobs appear across all industries and sectors. Concerns over implementation then arise on how MOE will integrate climate and gender perspective across all disciplines. And in regards to the amendments to the Social and Family Development Amendment, while we do agree that vulnerable communities have to be protected in our responses to climate-related disasters, we believe that the overemphasis on women's rights does not reflect the reality of Singapore's context. As a highly developed nation where rates of gender exclusion are relatively low compared to many of Southeast Asian nations, wealth inequity contributes more to being vulnerable to the impacts of disaster. Any efforts to ensure equitable responses to climate-related disasters should prioritize and be addressed along the lines of income levels, and this approach will reap benefits across other vulnerable groups like elderly and women. Furthermore, concerning the proposed amendment to the Community, Culture and Youth Act, aimed at promoting women's leadership in community-based initiative under MCCY, we highlight concerns about unintended consequences of gender-based resource allocation. We emphasize the need for comprehensive strategies, policy reforms, and collaborative efforts between grassroots and government-led initiatives to achieve meaningful progress in gender equality, environmental conservation, and sustainable development. And we believe that thoughtful deliberation, stakeholder engagement, and a balanced approach are essential to crafting effective and sustainable policies that benefit all members of society. So we look forward to continued discussions and collaboration to address these concerns and work towards shared scope and inclusivity, equity, and progress. Thank you for considering our perspective on these important matters.
Honourable Member of Opposition, Grace, you have the floor.
Are we not, going to the...
Go, Honourable Member of Manpower.
Mr. Speaker, I stand before you today representing the Ministry of Manpower and to bring light to an imperative issue concerning our workforce and the environment. Ensuring equal opportunities for women in sustainability jobs not only accelerates progress towards gender equality, but also contributes to a greener future for Singapore. Therefore, we are in full support of the bill. To tackle these issues effectively, we need comprehensive policies that strengthen provisions for gender equality and non-discrimination in the workplace. This includes measures to promote women's representation and advancement in climate-related industries and occupations, such of which could include enforcing equal pay for equal work, providing support for women's career progression in male-dominated fields such as engineering and technology, and additionally mandating inclusive workplace policies that prohibit discriminatory questions during recruitment is crucial. Instances where women are questioned about starting a family during recruitment planning decisions must be addressed, as this could affect a woman's job prospects and family planning decisions. Given our aging population, encouraging births is just as vital, and discriminatory practices during recruitment could hinder this goal and potentially prevent women from re-entering the workforce if they start a family. Mr. Speaker, in addressing these challenges, we must also consider health implications. Escalating temperatures and air pollution directly threaten maternal and newborn well-being. Integrating women's reproductive health into climate strategies is paramount to safeguarding public health and promoting sustainable population growth. From an economic standpoint, research from the McKinsey Global Institute shares the clear benefits of increasing gender equality in our workforce. By fostering inclusive workplaces, we provide equitable recruitment opportunities and can unlock an economic potential projected to add $26 billion to Singapore's GDP by 2025 alone. Further challenges related to skills will be elaborated by my colleague in MOE, but LinkedIn's Green Gender Gap Report reveals concerning disparities. Only 1 in 10 women possess a minimum of 1 green skill, highlighting the urgent emergency to bridge this gap. Additionally, the shortage of talent and skills in the transition to a green economy possesses a significant obstacle to our climate targets. Small and medium enterprises must also be part of this upskilling, as they comprise a substantial portion of our workforce and encounter further difficulties in accessing these resources to upskill and train. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I urge us to take a decisive action to amend the existing policies that could lead to thriving and fostering gender equality in a green economy. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Education, you have the floor.
Mr. Speaker, MOE stands in full support of the Women's Empowerment for Climate Solutions Bill, recognizing its significance in advancing gender equality and addressing the multifaceted challenges of climate change. This bill presents a vital framework for promoting women's leadership, enhancing access to education and training, supporting women's entrepreneurs and innovators, and ensuring gender-responsive policies and programs in climate action. First and foremost, the bill aligns closely with MOE's commitment in fostering inclusive education and empowering all individuals, regardless of gender, to contribute meaningfully to society. By establishing mechanisms to promote women's leadership and participation in climate-related decision-making processes, we can ensure that diverse perspectives are represented and valued in shaping climate policies and strategies. While integrating climate education and gender perspective into the national curriculum presents challenges, we are committed to overcoming them with proper planning and resources. This includes providing specialized teacher training right from the start at the National Institute of Education, developing appropriate teaching materials, and ensuring age-appropriate and culturally sensitive content. Despite these challenges, the benefits of equipping students with the knowledge and skills to address climate change in a gender-responsive manner outweighs the obstacles. We remain steadfast in our commitment to create a more environmentally sustainable and gender-inclusive society.
there is an increasing urgency to prioritize the integration of climate education and gender perspective into the national curriculum across all subject discipline and levels. We believe that integrating climate education can be achieved seamlessly within existing curriculum frameworks without overly burdening educators or schools. Rather than introducing entirely new subjects or modules, we propose incorporating climate-related topics and discussion into existing lessons across various subjects. For instance, English and mother tongue comprehension passages addressing climate issues and their impacts, or math questions requiring students to calculate carbon emissions or temperature increases can be integrated into existing lessons. By consistently revisiting these themes throughout different subjects, students can gradually develop a comprehensive understanding of climate change without the need for additional teaching hours or resources. Furthermore, while we acknowledge the importance of a well-rounded education, we also believe that the integration of climate education and gender perspective enhances STEM education. Climate change is interconnected with various fields, and incorporating it into the curriculum fosters critical thinking and interdisciplinary understanding. So while we value equal opportunities for all students as well, it's also crucial to acknowledge the systemic and societal barriers that could potentially hinder girls' participation in STEM and climate-related fields. It is noteworthy that presently only 26% of women graduate with STEM degrees globally. And STEM disciplines form the bedrock for technological advancement and scientific comprehension, crucial in combating climate change effectively. Yet numerous factors contribute to this gender disparity. For example, STEM subjects are often viewed as more masculine, fostering social bias. Moreover, unconscious bias exhibited by educators and stakeholders can exacerbate this issue as well. So in conclusion, the Women's Empowerment for Climate Solution Bill represents a significant step forward in advancing gender equality and climate action in Singapore. By promoting women's leadership, enhancing access to education and training, supporting women's entrepreneurs and innovators, and ensuring gender-responsive policies and programs, we can build a more inclusive and sustainable future for all. MOE is fully committed to supporting the implementation of this bill and working collaboratively with other ministries to achieve its objectives. Thank you.
Thank you. The Minister of Social and Family Development.
Mr. Speaker, it is with great honor that I speak in support of the bill to advance the progress of women in Singapore in the domain of sustainability. Since independence, Singapore women have made tremendous progress. My ministry and the many ministers that have come before us have been at the forefront of this endeavor, and we have led the charge legislatively and through our policies and programs, nudging at times and earth-shakings at times. I'm proud to share how far we have come based on my interactions at the international level. Even from my G20 ministerial conference last year, I've seen how developing countries have had problems providing access to education for their girls, and developed countries complain how their girls were stereotyped to be educated for roles like teaching and nursing, and few were in STEM. When I shared that in Singapore, less than 1% of our children did not complete 10 years of education, and our girls were free to choose their own education pathways, including STEM, the room fell silent. I think in this belief that we have achieved both this. But we should now move from quantitative achievements to one where the quality of development is our focus, which is why we also launched the movement on Singapore Women, and also we support this bill to support the women's roles in different domains, even in the domain of sustainability. But we need to catalyze mindset shifts, and we must begin by challenging mindsets. And this means forging new societal norms based on respect and partnership. And because only then we can progress further, so we must truly empower both men and women to pursue their aspirations freely and fully. This requires collective commitment, individuals and families, people, private and public sectors. All segments of society are to step up and walk the talk. In this respect, I believe we men can make a difference for our women and in the process for ourselves. So thus my appeal also to all men. We can step up, we can do more, and we should be role models, not only in word, but also in deed. Because we must believe in equal partnership between men and women with respect as its cornerstone. And so while the mothership report that Mr. Speaker has shared shows that there's still some progress to be done, I believe there is a lag time in the aspiration and what is being done, and we will get there. I also want to state very clearly that this is not a zero-sum game, and from time to time, such beliefs and misperceptions will come up whenever we talk about advancing women's progress. And our approach is not about asserting the rights of one over the other, but as men, we have a big part to play to encourage equal partnership. With regard to the bill, I would just like to highlight 3 areas that we will be working on. There are 2 existing initiatives. One is on the revised Singapore Exchange listing rules to improve board diversity in listed companies. We will continue to push and make the changes to improve women representation in these boards. We will also work with the Council for Board Diversity to lead efforts to increase women's representation. We also will work with young NTUC to improve the tripartite guidelines on flexible work arrangements, especially for the area of sustainability employment. And hopefully that will also increase women's roles in this domain. The last one that will be needed to have a lot more work on is a partnership between private sector, the IHLs, and organizations like SCWO in response to what the opposition member said, that we must develop mentorship, networking, and training opportunities within industry and community partners to help women at work in these domains. And I believe a more concerted effort with more expertise and being layered on to help mentor women in this field will help also improve representation on boards and in companies involved in this domain. Mr. Speaker, this is a long and ongoing work. And so in closing, I would just like to say that the bill is just the start of a decade-long of work. We will continue to build a culture of respect and partnership between men and women and across all fields of society. And this is what will take us forward for our next bound. I want to extend our sincere appreciation to all members, including the opposition, and also invite them to join us in this endeavor to advance Singapore's women development toward a fairer and more inclusive society. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I invite the Honourable Minister of Community, Culture and Youth to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. MCCY will be speaking in full support of 3 key tenets that you mentioned, particularly the access to education, inspire leadership, and supporting women SMEs, or women-led SMEs. But before I get into that, I would like to also respond to some of the key points that the opposition made. The first one being that we should be wary of gender-based distribution of resources because it could be counterintuitive. I think MCCY is very aware of that as well, and so we are looking to tackle sectors such as energy or real estate or hard-to-abate sectors that are typically male-dominated in terms of the training we'll be providing for ground-up initiatives, particularly women in ground-up initiatives. I'll get more into explaining about the trainings in a bit. The second thing was about thoughtful deliberation, which is to choose sectors where there's significant lack of women. I think this is something we are also keeping in mind. And aside from just topical training, such as topical trainings on hard-to-abate sectors, we're also looking to train on leadership qualities, right? Which is something we see women really need, or not really need, but need to understand how to work within structures that are available in corporates, for example, international bodies, for them to fully take on these roles and create impact that they want to. Okay, so as to what MCCY will be doing in response to the key 3 tenets I mentioned earlier. For the first one, for access to education, we're looking to create a comprehensive range of capacity building workshops that not only do topical deep dives, but also cover material soft skills like people-centered leadership. So at MCCY, we're lucky to already work very closely with ground-ups, given we just launched Bagus, an initiative with MVPC that aims to nurture ground-ups. From a study that was done by MVPC, environmental causes make up 25% of their ground-ups. So
just from that, we already have a good pool of female leaders to work from, and also from a purely observational standpoint, it does appear that significant number of these ground-ups are either women-led or have a significant number of women volunteers and members within them. So our key question here is, how do we take this on-the-ground experience and transform them into formal leadership? So our trainings will incorporate companies and relevant government agencies to train our female leaders to marry their on-the-ground knowledge with understanding of policies and corporate strategies. It's been encouraging to see that the percentage of women in boards have been rising, and an article by Straits Times recently stated that currently, the percentage of women in boards stands at 36%, and that's a 15% jump from 2021. But yet, there does appear to be a gap in the number of women in leadership roles. So we hope that this particular training program will close that gap and also allow female leaders to be confident and competent in taking on these particular leadership roles. Another sector that we cover in MCCY is arts and heritage. So we're very excited to potentially launch a program with local artists to come up with murals that spotlight honorable female leaders in civic society, and particularly also in climate action. We cannot underestimate the value that art can have in inspiring action in the community. So hopefully this will be a nice, exciting initiative to get people excited about taking leadership roles and making contributions to their society. And lastly, MCCY also covers engagement with civic society. There was a study recently about how a third of men think that feminism does more harm than good, and many men, or a significant number of men, feel that traditional masculinity is under threat. These are concerns that are worth addressing, and we will hope to address via national dialogues. It's important to understand why there is a belief that certain laws maybe favor women, or how can we make a society that values gender equality as opposed to favoring one gender over the other. So that will be a key tenet of our approach as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Can I invite the Honourable Member Opposition to take the floor again?
Hello, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will begin by addressing the amendments brought forth by MOM and MSF. So while we appreciate the efforts by MOM to empower women in the workplace and ensure inclusion, we do see that the recommendations do not address important underlying factors that have led to the current inequitable situations for women in the workplace. And the solutions brought forth by the Honourable Member are simply surface level. Surface level. By promoting women advancement in the workplace, we do require a more nuanced and multifaceted approach that goes beyond simple gender quotas for hiring and promotion. We are concerned that the key initiatives such as awareness building have been ignored and overlooked for more lofty solutions. So we do recognize that the government resources have to be spent to identify, firstly, the challenges that women face instead of purely imposing top-down legislative solutions that are simply not a one-size-fits-all solution for industries, for multiple industries. So any solutions that you bring forth when it comes to women empowerment, such as gender quotas for hiring and promotion, skills development, mentorship programs, workplace flexibility, they require buy-in from employers and from the women employees. So before any of these solutions can come in place, there needs to be more emphasis on building awareness around gender inequality. I'll provide an example. So the National University of Singapore has reported that gender gaps are very evident even on researcher levels, where more male researchers have been awarded research fellowships and research grants. However, despite knowing this to be a fact, only 85% of NUS's research staff and faculty were aware of these gaps, and only 55% were willing to actually participate in a program to try and close it. Hence, we do see a very important need for more awareness building in this aspect. Our next concern is with the point that I brought on effective legislation and how this has to go beyond surface level solutions and target deeper issues such as unconscious bias. Career advancement for women is being hindered by unconscious bias in your hiring and promotion processes. Simply putting more women on hiring panels and leadership will not solve these unconscious biases, because even women have subconscious preferences against women. So I'll give you an example. The ABC News Network, they conducted this very interesting experiment where they had one male and one female candidate, and they had identical CVs. They responded to the interview in identical manners. However, the way that people that saw this interview described these women, the woman interviewee and the male interviewee were extremely different. The woman was described as aggressive, bossy, unlikable, and the man was seen as confident, a leadership material, and persuasive. Hence, we do see the very important need for the government to address these deeper underlying issues before presenting lofty ideas. And finally, we do see that the creation of preferential treatment based on cost policies to address, to target women empowerment, such as your gender-based quotas for hiring and advancement, could undermine meritocracy in Singapore. So these forceful and cost policies will hinder the adoption of more effective, nuanced, and gender-positive action. For example, there's a very good case study in Norway where we saw that Norway was the first country to essentially introduce a 40% gender quota on boards of listed companies. But in a study looking at the effect of this policy, it revealed that there were no statistically significant changes in gender wage gaps or in female representation in top positions. Hence, we do see a need for a more nuanced approach to the recommendations by the Honourable Member of MOM. Next, I'll go on to address the points by MSF. So, while we do appreciate the efforts to bring in all members of the community, including men, to enable equal partnership and advancing women's progress, and the member did bring up key solutions such as flexible work arrangements, networks, and mentorships to enable women, the opposition supports the ideas that the member has put forth, but we wish to address the specifics of the MSF amendments to the bill that the speaker did bring up. And this is in relation to addressing equitable responses to climate-related disasters. So the member mentioned an all-of-society approach, but this ignores the special attention needed to achieve equitable climate-related disaster responses that should be prioritized, that should accommodate vulnerable communities, including women and low-income groups. And in fact, the opposition puts forth that we should prioritize and address climate-related responses along the lines of low-income levels, because this will reap benefits across other vulnerable groups like the elderly and women. By prioritizing income-based approaches, policymakers can implement targeted interventions that are cost-effective, efficient, and equitable, ensuring that those who are most at risk have access to support they need. And the most at risk are the low-income groups being the ones that are the most at risk, because they have faced intersecting vulnerabilities related to housing, health, employment, and education, which are exacerbated by climate change. Low-income communities are also most at risk to climate-related disasters that Singaporeans have a high potential of facing, such as flooding, sea level rise, and heat stress. And this is because low-income communities often reside in low-lying or flood-prone areas due to limited housing options, or the facilities that they have access to are often poorly maintained and are inadequate to address climate-related disasters such as heat stress. Hence, we believe that prioritizing income-based disaster responses addresses the most pressing climate vulnerabilities without diluting the resources through broad gender-specific initiatives that may or may not be relevant and impactful for all communities in Singapore. Thank you.
Can I invite the Honourable Member of Minister of Manpower to take the floor, please?
Dear opposition, thank you so much for your points, and I would like to clarify some of mine. The clear amendment to the labor policy is to have a mandate that will further add on non-discrimination in the workforce, specifically related to discrimination on recruitment, specifically on sex, marital or civil partnership status, family situation, and specifically pregnancy questions to be avoided. This is drawn from inspiration, such as countries like Switzerland, where such mandates have been successfully implemented, and therefore recognizing the importance of fair and equal opportunities for all individuals. With regard to your point on awareness building, could not agree more, and therefore having more women to be in higher positions is definitely what is being put forward in the bill, with regard to ensuring that women climb up the ranks and not just remain in hiring the position at a lower level. And there are some statistics that can back this up. According to the Ministry of Manpower's latest data, the wage gap between men and women narrowed from 16.3% in 2018 to 14.3% in 2023. And whilst this is definitely a step forward, we still need to make sure that there is clarity with regard to how we're going to ensure equal pay across the board. Therefore, having mentorship within the workplace is essential, and MOE's bill to begin with to increase the urgency to prioritize integration of climate education and gender perspectives into the national curriculum for all subject levels to ensure that this is created from ground up in time for them to achieve their position whilst they enter the workplace. Secondly, in terms of boosting board diversity, we understand that there are significant aspects in terms of how to ensure that we are helping women climb to C-suite positions. Deloitte's 2022 report showed that women only hold 24.5% of senior leadership roles in Singapore. And when it comes to sustainability and entry-level gigs in STEM fields, only 37% of these are filled by women, whilst the representation of women in big C-suite levels are sluggish 14.5%. It is imperative that we are upskilling training, ensuring that there's accurate women representation across the board, as well as to ensure that upon hiring, they are not limited by asking any discriminatory questions upon hiring. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I invite the Honourable Minister of Social and Families to intervene, please?
Mr. Speaker, I would like to reinforce the point brought across by the member of the opposition, and it's an important one that we need to look out for our vulnerable communities and women. In fact, on the 5th of March 2024, the UN Food and Agriculture Organization did release a report saying that extreme heat is actually making some of our world's poorest women poorer. And this is based on the weather and income data in 24 low and middle income countries. It adds to a body of work that shows how global warming, driven by the burning of fossil fuels, can magnify and worsen existing social disparities. And so while heat stress is costly for all rural households, it is significantly more costly for households headed by women. And so female-headed households lose 8% more of their annual income compared with other households. Nonetheless, the circumstances in Singapore are different, but we note that there are also a lot of households that are headed by women. And sometimes there could be a lack of access to essential services such as loans, insurance, and other kinds to help them adapt to these climate change impacts. And so here it's not just about legal protections, but access to services and decision-making for their communities and families that will improve and mitigate the living conditions. To that end, I'm happy to say that we are in the process of setting up a multi-sectoral workgroup and task force to look at implications to vulnerable communities and women from climate change impact. And we will surface the recommendations sometime at the end of the year to see what other policies and shifts we will need to make to improve these things. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I invite the Honourable Minister of Education to speak to the point, or the Leader of Opposition? Would you want to take the floor instead? Leader of Opposition, you have the floor.
Okay, so we, as the opposition party, wish to express our reservation in opposition group concerning the proposed amendment to the Education Act aimed at integrating climate education and gender equality into the national curriculum. So while we value the importance of comprehensive education and gender equality, we believe that this particular approach may present some challenges that need careful consideration. The proposed integration of climate education into the national curriculum is commendable, considering the urgent need for environment literacy. However, we are concerned that mandating the inclusion of specific topics such as climate change may place an additional burden on educators in schools that are already grappling with a tight curriculum. So while integrating climate education and gender perspective is undoubtedly crucial, it is essential to ensure that such initiatives do not detract from other fundamental aspects of education. So the national curriculum should be prioritized with a well-rounded education that equips students with essential skills and knowledge across various disciplines such as STEM, digital literacy, financial literacy, and recently we also want to include mental health awareness, then overly emphasizing specific topics such as climate change. So integrating climate education and gender perspective into the national curriculum may pose significant implementation challenges. It is encouraging to hear that there are plans to include specialized training for teachers, development of appropriate teaching materials, and ensuring that the curriculum is culturally sensitive. But without adequate support and resources, this initiative can lead to stress and dissatisfaction and unhappiness among teachers, which can detract from their effectiveness. So as such, there is a risk that the integration may be ineffective or even counterproductive. So MOE has also raised the intention to integrate climate issues in various disciplines. However, we have to be mindful that such integration has to be meaningful, as tokenistic approach can lead to students being skeptical and educators undermining the goals of fostering a deep understanding of and engagement with these critical issues. So, furthermore, while promoting girls' participation in STEM subjects and supporting their interest in these fields is crucial for fostering diversity and inclusivity, instead of mandating quotas or specific mentorship programs, we really advocate the initiative that provide equal opportunities for all students, regardless of gender, to explore and excel in STEM and climate-related fields based on their interests and abilities. So these efforts can help to enhance climate literacy, and the leadership should be inclusive and accessible to all individuals, regardless of gender.
Thank you. Plenty to respond to. Honorable Minister of Education, you have the floor.
That's a lot of points. Okay, I think earlier I already responded to I already highlighted some of the key aspects of the amendment to the education bill. For example, like the idea of there being additional burden on educators and causing stress to teachers. I've already highlighted that at MOE, we are not looking at the implementation of any new subject areas or even the implementation of new content or new topics, but rather we are looking at how we can seamlessly integrate climate conversation into various subjects as well as across the different levels. So, for example, instead of having math teachers learn an entire new module about climate change or about sustainability, we are just asking teachers to maybe possibly integrate one or two questions in their math lessons that relates to climate change. For example, instead of asking, questions about how many apples does this person would have, after deducting certain things, teachers can actually ask students questions about carbon emissions or maybe calculate the rate of deforestation. This could subconsciously build a knowledge pool for the students, and that could build up over time as well to help students realize that this topic is being talked about across different subject areas and across different levels. Because currently in MOE or across the different levels, climate change is only discussed very briefly in Primary 3 and Primary 5 social studies, as well as upper primary science, and it's only discussed in lower secondary science, as well as upper secondary biology, and upper secondary geography, and A-level geography. And that being said,
the climate change topic in upper secondary geography is not mandatory as well for elective students. So what we are proposing is for climate change conversation to not just take place in these subjects and at these particular levels, but to be integrated across all subject areas, across MOE, students' education journey, both horizontally and vertically, right? And of course, we also acknowledge that it is important for education to be all-rounded and to not just focus on climate change education. But we believe that because climate change is highly interconnected with other fields, and incorporating it into the curriculum can foster critical thinking and interdisciplinary understanding. According to the World Economic Forum 2024 Global Risk Report, it says that misinformation and disinformation is one of the biggest risks. And that is something that we need to address. And that could be addressed by fostering this critical thinking for students at a young age and across the different levels. And of course, we also acknowledge that there are going to be incredible challenges that we need to overcome, especially in bringing the teachers on board. But that is a change management that MOE is ready to take on. We believe that engagement should not just happen at the NIE stage, but we also need to bring along the teachers who have been in service for 5 years, for 10 years, for 20 years. And that is a change management that needs to come from the top as well as from bottom up. So we need to engage our school leaders to come on board first, and then from there, conversations can continue with the teachers in school on a daily basis as to why this is important. But it's also important to note that MOE has been taking initiative in this sense. We have started our Eco Stewardship Program as part of the Singapore Green Plan 2030. And with that, we are looking at a range of different initiatives from enhancing the curriculum to even enhancing the campus to make it net zero. So there are a lot of these initiatives that are happening, and teachers are beginning to see that this is important, and that is one of the ways that we are managing change. But of course, we understand that teachers will still feel stress. So therefore, as mentioned, we would constantly have conversation with teachers across different platforms and across different events as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Leader of Opposition, you have the floor again.
Okay, so we as an opposition party, we recognize the efforts and also the intention to really empower women and their involvement in environmental efforts and also climate change initiative. So, however, we believe that this approach warrants further discussion. Okay, so the proposed amendment seeks to provide funding and capacity building support for women-led projects addressing climate resilience, environmental conservation, and sustainable development at a local level. So, while the intention is noble, we are concerned about the potential unintended consequences of channeling resources primarily based on gender. And this approach may inevitably overlook other deserving projects and also accelerate existing inequalities in access to resource and other opportunities, and limiting the overall impact and effectiveness of community-based initiative. So as such, certain groups or communities may have more resources and social capital to initiate and sustain their projects, and this will lead to disparities in participation and outcomes. So this is also important to consider how to ensure equitable access to support for all individuals and communities regardless of their background or circumstances. So additionally, we're prioritizing women's voices and perspective in dialogues, and consultation is also essential for ensuring inclusivity and diversity. We caution against tokenism or symbolic gestures that may not lead to substantive change. So this meaningful participation in dialogues and consultation requires a comprehensive strategy, and I think this should address systemic barriers, promote diversity of thought, and also to foster a safe environment where all voices are heard and valued. So in addition, while public discussions are also essential to foster dialogue and collaboration, they must be accompanied by concrete actions and policy changes to address the root issues of gender equality, environmental impacts, and unsustainable development. So all these communication suggestions and challenges without meaningful policy reform may not lead to tangible improvement on the ground. So we believe that while ground-up initiatives are valuable, they must be complemented by top-down policies and systemic changes to achieve meaningful progress in gender equality and sustainable development. So yes, while ground-up initiatives play a crucial role in addressing these community needs, they often lack the resources and influence. So supporting such initiative is commendable, and that it does not overshadow the need of comprehensive policy reform and government action. And it is also encouraging to hear that one more point. So it is also encouraging to hear MCCY is looking closely with ground-ups. So while supporting this ground-up initiative is essential, this is also we need to recognize the complementary role of government to promote gender equality and also environment conservation. So all these policies and programs, it has to provide a broader framework and resources to support this ground-up effectively. So instead of relying only on ground-up initiative, we need a collaborative approach to leverage the strength of both grassroots and government-led initiatives.
Thank you. Honorable Minister of Community Culture and Youth, you have the floor.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, I hope to respond to that with an analogy. So I was speaking earlier about how with our arts and heritage, we're looking to create more murals to highlight or spotlight certain honorable female leaders in civic society. I was just doing a quick search on the different statues we have in Singapore, or murals supporting leaders in Singapore or highlighting leaders. So we have Munshi Abdullah, we have Sir Stamford Raffles. But if we look to do a mural on female leaders, I wouldn't consider that tokenism. I think it's just allowing space for people who haven't, or a particular group that hasn't been represented before or highlighted before. So in the same way, I wouldn't consider running a program for young female leaders in the ground-up space tokenism. I think it's just providing them opportunities that they might not be able to have access to or have confidence to move into, for example, if it's a leadership position. And that's how we want to present it. As for working with corporate stakeholders and the government agencies, we definitely agree. I think just from an observational point of view, and even in the room represented, many women are interested in environmental causes, but we don't see the same percentage reflected in key leadership positions, and this is a deep concern for us. Why is it not translated? So I think for us, actually taking in the corporate perspective in terms of maybe how they build strategies, and how can young female leaders who are so passionate gain that expertise and understanding so that when they interview for a particular role, they're like, hey, like, I know how to do this and I can do it. And as for the mindset shift that both of you have been speaking about, it's always a time game, right? How long mindsets take to change is, it might take a long time, and I don't think it's fair for us to disadvantage young female leaders who are competent but maybe are perceived as not competent enough to wait around for this change to happen. I think it's important for us to put in place policies that push for this change on the front end first. So for example, with SGX, where they required diversity in terms of female leadership in their board members, I think this is where we start, right? But then we can move to the diversity for racial representation and other things. So the same way we can start with women being represented as a policy, as a rule, as a program, and then of course when things get better we can move to other granular factors. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I invite the Minister of Manpower to take the floor to wrap up your responses to the opposition, please?
Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, it is clear that ensuring equal opportunities for women in sustainability jobs is essential, not only for achieving gender equality, but also for fostering a greener future for Singapore. Mandating inclusive workplace policies to prevent discrimination during recruitment is vital to address unfair practices, which needs to be done in collaboration with the private sector. The economic benefits of gender equality also cannot be overlooked. And finally, integrating health into climate strategies is crucial. By taking decisive action and amending existing policies, we can ensure that vulnerability of older women to heat-related illnesses and other climate change impacts will not be overlooked. Studies have also shown that women often bear primary responsibility for caregiving and are more vulnerable to heat waves and other climate-related risks, emphasizing the interconnectedness of gender, health, and environment sustainability. I urge all members to support and pass this bill, and as it represents a significant step towards achieving our goals of gender equality, environment sustainability, and economic prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Education, you have the floor.
Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, MOE stands firmly in support of the Women's Empowerment for Climate Solutions Bill. This bill aligns seamlessly with MOE's vision of fostering a holistic and forward-thinking education system that not only equips students with academic knowledge, but also instill in them the values of environmental stewardship and gender equality. Through our initiatives and programs such as the Eco-Stewardship, MOE has been at the forefront of advancing climate change education and sustainability awareness among our students. However, we recognize that more can be done to ensure that our education system reflects the interconnectedness of climate change and gender issues. By integrating climate education and gender perspectives into the national curriculum, we are not only addressing the urgent need to educate our youth about the pressing challenges of climate change, but also promote inclusivity and empowerment of women in STEM and climate-related fields. This is in line with MOE's commitment to nurturing a diverse and inclusive learning environment where every student has the opportunity to thrive and reach their full potential regardless of gender. Furthermore, as educators, we understand the importance of addressing unconscious bias and promoting gender equality from a young age. By embedding these principles into our education system, we are laying the foundation for a more equitable society where everyone, regardless of gender, have the opportunity to contribute meaningfully to addressing global challenges like climate change. In supporting this bill, MOE reaffirm our dedication to shaping responsible, environmentally conscious citizens who are equipped with the knowledge, skills, and values needed to create a more sustainable and inclusive future for Singapore and beyond. Together, let us embrace the Women Empowerment for Climate Solutions Bill as a testament to our commitment to education, sustainability, and gender equality. Thank you.
Thank you. The Minister of Social and Family Development, you have the floor.
Mr. Speaker, we stand in support of the bill. It reflects our shared vision towards a fairer and more inclusive society where men and women partner each other as equals and both can pursue their aspirations freely and to the fullest. It also reflects a need to continue our cultural and mindset shift by engaging a whole of society approach where the economic, sustainability and social dimensions are addressed comprehensively. So to the end, we stand in full support of the bill and its amendment.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Community, Culture and Youth, you have the floor.
MCCY stands in full support of the bill as well, in particularly three main domains as previously mentioned, so access to education, to inspire leadership, and support women SMEs. So the first one being that we work very closely with ground-ups already, so we're hoping through our Bagus initiative, we can run capacity building workshops with corporates and government agencies that are relevant to this particular program, and run them not only based on a topical basis, but also based on soft skills such as leadership and other things. The other thing we're also looking to move into in support of the bill is for the arts and heritage sector. So we're looking to work with local artists to spotlight honourable female leaders and encourage the public to recognise these people who have already contributed so much to society in the environment and hopefully inspire younger leaders or younger female leaders to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Member of Opposition.
Thank you. Honourable members, in conclusion, the opposition party remains steadfast in expressing our concerns regarding the proposed bill and amendments, including the Employment Act, MCCY Act, MOM and MOE. While we acknowledge the importance of promoting gender equality, women's representation in climate-related industries, and empowering women leadership in community-based activities, we believe that a more nuanced and comprehensive approach is needed. Our reservations stem from the seeming focus on surface-level solutions instead of addressing underlying issues and an overemphasis on gendered considerations that do not fit Singapore's reality or offer practical considerations. We advocate for a more nuanced approach to the proposed Employment Act amendment on gender inequality in climate-related and male-dominated industries, emphasizing comprehensive strategies like, instead we emphasize comprehensive strategies like awareness building. Legislative action should target deeper issues like unconscious bias and recognize the intersecting identities for equal opportunities based on merit. We would also like to reiterate the realities that the Honourable Speaker brought up. The fact that men are feeling marginalized as a result of current women empowerment efforts. And although it should not be the case, but simply putting women in leadership positions will not solve these issues. Although we are heartened by your agreement for agreement on our stance on awareness building, we also seek further clarification another time on education of gender-based policies. So that we do see a difference in telling people that these policies are happening versus allowing them to understand why these policies need to be in place, especially given the animosity and controversy surrounding this issue. Regarding the integration of climate education and gender equality in the national curriculum by MOE, we expressed our reservations on implementation effectiveness. So once again, while promoting girls' participation in STEM is commendable, we do see that sustained engagement is still lacking in the proposed bill. Mentorship for female students should acknowledge the climate-related job spans across all industries, and we also are concerned about MOE's ability to integrate climate and gender perspectives across these disciplines. Concerning the social and family development amendment, we believe the responses should once again prioritize equitable measures based on income levels, benefiting vulnerable groups such as elderly and women. In your comprehensive approach that you have suggested, it's very hard to talk against a multi-sectorial task force, but we do seek further clarification on what this multi-sectorial task force will do, in particular, how you will balance the needs of these different vulnerable groups. Regarding the Community Culture and Youth Act, promoting women's leadership in community-based initiatives, we caution against unintended consequences of a gender-based resource allocation, and do see more of a need for comprehensive strategies and policy reforms that that come in hand with grassroots and government-led collaboration in order for more meaningful progress. In crafting these effective policies, we do require thoughtful deliberation, stakeholder engagement, and a balanced approach is essential. So we look forward to continued discussions and collaboration towards the shared goals of inclusivity, equity, and progress. We urge all stakeholders to engage in thoughtful deliberations and do not shy away from solving underlying issues instead of suggesting these high-level, lofty policy recommendations. We do believe that together we can work towards creating an inclusive, equitable, and sustainable solution for our society. Thank you for your attention and consideration.
Thank you, honourable members, for the lively debate. The nature of climate change and its pervasive impacts is reflected in this House as well, as we see various views from the different ministries, from Manpower, education, and the social sectors, as well as constructive views from the opposition being reflected to sharpen what is proposed in our House today, and to help our society and Singaporeans as a whole effectively combat as well as live with the impacts of climate change in a more inclusive manner. With that, I'll aim to summarize the key points before I call for a vote on the bill. On manpower, the Minister of Manpower rightly pointed out that women are currently underskilled and underrepresented in key leadership roles in the corporate sector with regard to climate change and sustainability. And in that vein, the Minister has proposed that this be addressed through the bill as well as the amendments to the current Unemployment Act. On education, the Minister has put forth that gender-responsive policies as well as educational programs are needed, and sufficient and the resourcing problem with that could be addressed because introducing such climate change-related educational policies could have transferable benefits, such as improving the critical thinking of students that can help students and the younger population better address other issues such as dealing with misinformation and disinformation and negative influence. The Minister of Social and Family Development rightly points out that we have come a long way. Compared to other countries, Singapore has, since independence, made long strides forwards towards equality across many areas beyond climate change and gender, and that this bill proposes to move the next step, to move beyond quantitative indicators to qualitative metrics of assessing. And with that, he rightly points out that it's not a zero-sum game, and it's about how we can elevate Singapore and Singaporeans as a whole towards the next step in our social development. And with that, the Minister proposed inclusive, whole-of-society approaches that included mentorship opportunities, ground-up mentorship opportunities, as well as top-down amendments that this bill proposes. The Minister of Community, Culture and the Youth rightly pointed out that in addition to the top-down, his ministry or her ministry proposes a bottom-up approach of how arts and the culture can play a part in bridging the gender gap in climate change and sustainability-related issues. And importantly, through arts and culture, perceptions could be addressed, such as through national dialogues, and instituting them through this bill could play a part in addressing gender inequalities in the climate change and sustainability field. The leader of opposition and members of opposition also put forth constructive views. But this bill is true, it's broad stroke, and a more nuanced approach is needed, and further reminders to the bill is needed before that bill is to be passed. Firstly, they pointed out that a gender-based resourcing approach is counterintuitive and is counterproductive, and is something that we have not often adopted as we approach bills in this House. Points were brought forth that other issues such as targeting unconscious bias have not been addressed in this bill and need to be addressed in this bill for the bill to be comprehensive and for Singaporeans to benefit from the outcomes that are intended from this bill. In addition, the opposition pointed out that this bill is put forth in an overly top-down manner, and a bottom-up and top-down approach is needed to address a problem such as gender equality in climate change that affects that affects the spectrum of society, as is reflected here, with the bill having impacts on manpower, education, as well as the social sectors. With that in mind, I invite members of the House to take into account the diverse views from the proponents of the bill and the ministers in support of the bill, as well as views of the opposition in voting in support or against this House adopting this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker, Ministry and opposition members. May I now invite the audience to scan the QR code on the screen to cast your votes on whether or not to pass the bill.
I did, yeah. Pretty easy.
Members of the House, you can vote too.
Panelists, you can take your seats if you wish to.
Sit down. Okay, everybody look at the lens here. I'm being strongly. Oh, right. Oh, that's really.
Sorry, not friendly at all.
Scary.
Hey, I thought that you were gonna address both our comments, so suddenly Ruben was like, please, you want that? I'm not prepared.
Oh, yeah.
I just blabbered.
No, you're great.
Okay. That was fun. Good job, guys. We were like so worried. Last yesterday we still like, oh my god, we're dark. Standing here like 12 midnight. Very nice.
One speaker of the
Probably anything.
Yes.
There. SSA_guest.
Guest at SSA.
All small letters.
Lowercase. So it's SSA guest, and then the password is all in lower caps. Guest at SSA.
Like the email at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Priscilla! Because you look smiling, and I was like, you look like some evil thing. No, like, chill. You look so serious. I'm like,
They always look like plotting something inside the room. They're like coming.
right. Plotting something. She kept looking at me like she's plotting something. She's like,
Then even
there's like ribbon. It's like, yo, whisper, you know. Let's have to look at that. Serious na. You wear my ear. Oh my god. Israel, I don't know this. Tell me I'm wrong. First of all, Rafa Puntri Abdullah. Some few woman nameless. Tell me, honestly. Hey, let's take a selfie. Yeah. Guys, look at me. This is my bad selfie skills. 3, 2. Why are you not inside? Okay, you need to. You move it here a little bit. Yeah, like that. Okay, great. Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry. My dog left.
I'm waiting for them to tell us.
my period, right? Because they were
Hello, Tessie. Yep. Members of the House, with great pleasure, I move that the Women's Empowerment Bill has been passed in this House.
Thank you, Speaker. May I invite all the panelists to take your seats and take a group photo with the rest of the audience, please?